The DC Extended Universe has not had an easy ride lately. While Man of Steel was an interesting and modern take on Superman, it still suffered from being too dark and lacking any kind of optimism that is synonymous with the character. Batman v Superman wasn't terrible by any means, but it seemed torn between creatives that wanted to make a true comic book movie and a production office that just wanted to push their Avengers-style team-up film. And even then, it still suffered from overly dark tones that seemed to alienate the film rather than make it a true DC product. Suicide Squad felt like a franchise going into a panic mode, with a confused plot and editing that didn't seem to know where the focus needed to be, and relied more so on tropes from Guardians of the Galaxy and focus groups rather than on letting the film be its own thing. It was starting to feel like DC was on its last leg. That is until Wonder Woman showed up, and man, I never thought I'd say I needed a Wonder Woman film in my life. And it's funny because it's not just a movie that I need, it feels like it's a movie that the country needs right now too. While being the basic plot of Wonder Woman's arrival from an Amazonian paradise, this film exudes heavy amounts of thrills, romance, hope, and dare I say it, joy, while also expanding on interesting concepts about the nature of humanity as an instrument of war. It can still be dark, but that doesn't mean you can't have levity as well. It's been expressed before that this film feels like the first time people saw the Christopher Reeves Superman, and that's not hard to see. The film is just so fun and high-flying and full of those old cheap thrills that we used to love from the 80s. It's there. It's definitely a pure action-adventure film that feels like it's from an older era. And yeah, Wonder Woman is great. She just exudes this level of lawful good and naivete that made the first Superman so good. You can't help but love her. You can't help but want to be like her. Yeah, misogynist douchebags, you can want to emulate characteristics of a female character. It's not a big deal. Get over it. But what's surprising about this film? I mean, what is truly surprising is that as empowering as it is, as forward-thinking as it is, it still takes time to have a romantic plot. And in the past, romantic plots have always been known as ways to make the female character degraded. It takes away from it. It's usually the one part that makes strong female leads weaker in a lot of people's eyes. But in this, they take it in such a way that you don't feel like you've lost anything from it. The chemistry between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine is just pure electricity. Every time they're on screen, every time they're talking, you can't help but just love them. You can't help but just want to be that relationship. They're so mutual and they're so equal in each other, and they complement each other, and they actually work really well together to get what they want done in the film. It works so perfectly. And their dialogue between each other is not excruciating, to say the least. It's not like older films. It kind of reminded me of African Queen or Romancing the Stone in that sense. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's so good. There's these scenes where they're having these long dialogues, almost like Tarantino-esque in a way, and you really don't have any issue with what they're talking about. You actually love being in on these conversations. Okay, so the action. By God, do I love the action in this film. I know I keep on harkening back to 80s films, but man, it felt like a Raiders of the Lost Ark action adventure. It felt like Indiana Jones in a lot of ways. One scene in particular is the No Man's Land scene. Holy shit, your brain is gonna explode when you see this scene. It is one of the most pure, fun action films I've seen in a long time. And that soundtrack, holy God, that soundtrack is excellent. It felt so John Williams-esque. I mean, and that's, again, another 80s illusion, but it almost feels like this film is emulating those classic adventure films from the 1980s. It's so pure and perfect. And that theme song you hear when she starts kicking ass, it's the first theme song I've heard in a long time that I felt like I could actually hum. It's recognizable, and it's something that you would immediately put with this character. Seriously, though, the level of joy I felt for Wonder Woman was pure. You can't help but love this film. It's a fine example of what DC is capable of when they actually take the time to build their characters. Which, yeah, as of now, the standalone films are astronomically better. Man of Steel is way better than Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman is way better than all of those. Maybe it's because you don't need to force-feed backstory into the plot. You can allow the hero to breathe and just be the hero. as opposed to BVS and Suicide Squad, where they kept on trying to just stuff character and DC reference after DC reference into these films to the point where they became bloated and unwatchable. While this restores my faith in the DC universe, there's still a long way to go. Justice League comes out in October, and again, that's a team-up film, and I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out. It was written and directed during the era when they were still trying to figure out what to do, how to recover from BVS, so who knows how that's going to be. That being said, the era to follow, if they should do well, is very exciting. I can see them trying to emulate Wonder Woman to a T, and trying to take the elements that worked in this film and incorporate into that one. As far as I'm concerned, despite the hump that Justice League might end up being, the future of DC is brighter, and for the first time in a while, Marvel has some true competition in the field of cinema. Wonder Woman, the summer movie that we all really, really needed really bad, because I'm still pissed off about Pirates of the Caribbean.